Well, welcome back then to the steps of Parliament, of course, as we get to count down to the medium-term budget policy statement here, happening, of course, at 2 o'clock, around 15 minutes or so to go until Finance Minister Mboweni does deliver that message. I'm joined as well in studio then, as I said a little bit earlier, by Cass Kuvadia from the Banking Association South Africa, but we also have political economy analyst Angelo Fick, who joins us as well in studio. Angelo, thank you so much for your time. I suppose we can kick off with you. Before the break, we sort of had thoughts just around the leadership within South Africa, ensuring that we can take a full-on message that we say is about growth and actually move that forward. Do you feel we've perhaps had a dearth of leadership before we get to trying to build an economic structure for South Africa that will take us beyond the next 2-3 years?
Well, I'm not one who necessarily believes in the mantra of leadership, but I think, if you want to have leaders, you have to have followers. And what we've had is a dearth of people who follow the plan that they set out. We've had state failure because people have a policy, but you have ministers of government who don't implement them in the previous administration. We've had 20 years of promises undelivered on and things that weren't required bought. And this is not a spectacular record of failure only. There have been major successes, but I think leadership is one way of looking at this. I think the other way of looking at this is actually doing the work that is the work of the state, which is to provide and to manage and to make sure that that which is managed correctly. And we've seen that hasn't worked. And so what I think people are looking for is not necessarily new directions, but actually the implementation of an actual public service, work that is done to rule and with the effect that is envisaged in the policy.
Yeah, given that notion, one of the issues that now we're looking for panaceas and we're looking for little quick wins to get us to the final resting place that we're hoping for. Unfortunately, those aren't here right now, and we're going to have to wait for quite some time in order to turn the massive ship that is our economy.
Yes, and I think if you make something over 25 years, you don't unmake it in 5 years. And this imagination that many South Africans have, that where we are today was made in a matter of either 5 centuries or in the matter of 5 years, is to, one, mistake how history works. The second problem is, of course, that we are not necessarily in control of the vehicle by ourselves. This is one country that works in a global, shall we say, dispensation and system where there are other factors over which we have no control. The problem in South Africa is often that over which we have control has been mismanaged or not properly managed, and then there has been a blame shifting onto that which we cannot control. We have to take responsibility, we have to bite the bullet, and I think it's also important for middle class people to realize that maybe the way in which they live and the way in which they imagine their lives should be is not necessarily in the best interest of longer term recovery and rebuilding.
Yeah. Corporates have to play a massive role here in shaping how society or how things are seen, I suppose, from a consumer basis. And what I mean by that is that how a consumer sees what banks do, what corporates do for them, is going to be quite important from here on too, in order to feel and believe that you're actually part of South Africa's growth.
Yeah, look, I'm one of those who advocates that the line between business and society is sort of fading. Okay, so business plays its role and does its business within the context of the society, and for the long-term sustainability of business profitability of business growth, I think business does need to play a role in ensuring that there is a societal impact, a positive societal impact as a result of the business they do. So in the way they do the business, in the way they relate to communities and so on. And so that's the way you would do business. But the bottom line here in South Africa is that we are unable to do business to the extent and reach the potential we can reach simply because of what Angelo has said, that government has not actually played the role it needs to play to facilitate an environment where business can thrive. And that's what we're asking for. So there's some massive challenges, but while we're addressing those challenges, just at a very basic level. So recently the announcement was made that they're not going to seek a breach birth certificate and all that for visas.
Sure.
That's something we've been talking to government for the last 2 years about. Spectrum, there's a timetable in place to release spectrum. We need to do that quicker, but at least there's a timetable in place now. Just make it easier for businesses to open, to be licensed. Make it easier for permits to be issued. So cut all of that basic red tape that just gets the machinery going so that business can actually do business. But side by side with that, ensure that there's political stability and ensure that there's policy certainty and implementation. Those are the sorts of things business looks for. Business won't be happy with every policy you put into place.
But as long as you implement
it's
it, at the very
certain,
least.
the rules are there for the long term, you implement, and then business can work within that context.
Yeah.
And that's what business is looking for.
Angelo, very quickly, your expectations as well from this medium-term budget. What is perhaps the one element you'd love the minister to at least unpack in detail?
Well, I think everybody wants to know what they're doing with ESCOM as I watch Praveen Gordhan walk by. But I think it's important for us to hear what the energy plan is and what the financing of that will be and what the future is of the other ailing SOEs. That's what I expect him to talk about. What I would want him to talk about, my expectations are very different. It would be wonderful to hear that the income inequality that we keep talking about in South Africa starts being applied or starts being undone in government. There is no reason that a high school principal and a minister should be earning the kind of difference in salary that they do, that a school teacher, a nurse and a member of parliament should have the kind of salary differentials. If we're sending a message to our children that education matters and that it should, someone who spent 7 years getting educated should certainly not have the same kind of, the same kind of economic status as somebody who's representing the interests of the people in Parliament. Otherwise, we're telling our children that the future lies in political toadying, not in education.
Angelo, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it. We'll continue our countdown then as well to that MTBPS 2 o'clock, just over 10 minutes or so until the finance minister begins to perhaps address us and let us know exactly what his thoughts are when it comes to that medium-term budget policy statement. We'll continue to give you the latest from right here in Cape Town in Parliament. For now, it's back to studio.
Thank you so much to Arabile Gumede, and as you mentioned, we will continue to cover that medium-term budget policy statement. Your weather details are after the break, so stay tuned with us.